Welcome to another Backyard Professor Chess video. I have discovered a treasure that I've had in my library for quite some time, and I had no idea. Isaac Lipnitsky. This is a Russian classic of chess literature. It's Questions of Modern Chess Theory. I've discovered something that I'm going to share with you, and I've probably already said this to you before, but I'm going to say it to you again because it bears repeating. We see the same principle. Well, there's hundreds of chess principles that we want to know about, right? But we see the same chess principles repeated over and over again, but we see a virtual infinite variety of ways to accomplish it. I think this is vital. I think this is very important. This particular game is from the World Champion Mikael Botvinnik, who was black, and his opponent is Stolberg, who is playing white. And Botvinnik was one of those dour, humorless people. He really wasn't, from what I've been told, he really wasn't all that exciting and pleasant to be around. He was kind of somber, sober, never cracked a smile, never laughed at anyone's jokes. But when it came to chess, he played chess by strict scientific principles. And he was the best when he was the world champion. Just post-Alexander Alekhine, post-World War II. He is exceptionally excellent. Again, he's playing the black. What this game is going to illustrate to us, the principle that we want to see in action again, is this idea of the pure power, the significance, and the importance of the center. Now, we all know about it. But what is so beautiful about playing dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of games that work the center over is seeing the different combinations of pieces that the masters play. For instance, it's really spectacular to see how they coordinate pawns with bishops, or knights with rooks, or a queen, a bishop, a knight, and a pawn, and see how they utilize and coordinate and put together either an attack or a defense, whether it's in the center or somewhere else. White has played C take D5. Now black takes E takes D5, and I'm going to start marking these down because I keep skipping moves. All right, now, at this point, white does something very significant and interesting. He puts the knight at G to E2. Now, this has a very interesting effect on this game. Now, C comes up to 5. You can see this game is a fight for the center, can't you? Oh, and I had this castled, but he wasn't castled yet. But now he does castle. So, he is castled now. Oh, and I lied. No, I lied. C5 and then white castles. Yeah, black doesn't get to move twice. White gets to move once. White castles. Now, watch how Botvinnik begins to play interestingly here. Knight C6 and now A3. Now, he's putting the question to the bishop, right? Rather than worrying about his bishop, he takes a central pawn, as well as threatens the knight. Clever move, yes? Very clever. Now, E takes D4 also, the pawn. And now, bishop falls back to D6, and here's what Lipnitsky says about this. See, this is the beauty of understanding how to read the board and why we Chessercise, we practice through master games so that we can see how they coordinate which pieces and where those pieces are influencing the game. This becomes important, and this is what gives Botvinnik that move, interestingly enough. Why? Because Botvinnik wants to cover this square, the E5. Why? I mean, why pick E5? Why not pick something like H3, right? Here's why. He has a knight hitting E5. He has a bishop hitting E5. Botvinnik has the open file that he can put his rook on that will influence E5. Are you starting to get the point here? Botvinnik has a square that he has chosen. Our wondering is, how do you know what square to pick? Yeah, why don't you pick H3 or F4? I mean, what is so special about E5? Here's what's so special about it. The way white opened gives white one less power to influence E5. Therefore, Botvinnik can control this square. Now, weak squares and strong squares change as the game goes on, but of course, we know that. But look, here's why. Rather than being a game where I tell you, oh, he moves here, he moves there, he moves here, he moves there, he did this, he did that, wasn't that cool, isn't he great, and the game is over, we want to know why and how so that we can play this way. White put his bishop on E2 and not on F3 in the opening. The difference? If he would have put the knight on F3, he would hit E5. You see that? If he would have put it there, he would have had an influence on E5. But he didn't. By moving the knight here, he has one less power hitting E5. Therefore, E5 for white is going to be weaker than for black. That's why black chose E5. This is why the bishop did not exchange the knight, but came back to here. See, by understanding the pieces and how they move and the squares that they influence, it determines whether we should exchange a piece or else move it back to a certain point so it too can be influential. And now white stupidly plays H3. And this is what not to do. This move, rook to the file, would have been vastly superior. Why? I mean, you can see it, right? Because by putting the rook on the file, you hit E5. You've already taken out one piece. For crying out loud, you have to get as much up there as you can. The bishop to F4 would have been vastly superior to this stupid waste of time move. So anyway, enough talking. Show us the game, you moron. Well, now Botvinnik follows suit H6. You see how knowing the imbalances, knowing where the pieces are pointing and where they're not pointing, do you notice how that affects where to play your pieces? B comes up to 4. Now, he's getting loofed. He's trying to make more space for himself, right? B4. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Am I psychic or what? No, actually, I played this game several times today. But I am psychic. Or maybe psychic-delic. Rooks on open files, man. I cannot say that too much. And it gives him another piece for E5. Right? Enough said. Truly. Well, queen comes to B3. Notice he pushed the pawn first. Yeah, get the pawn up in front and use the pawn as the batteries, and then put your pieces behind the pawn. So he's giving himself some space. Look, he's got his power. His power's pointing that way, right? Put your queen over there. Look, there's no guesswork by black anymore, right? You know what your opponent's going to do. Now, bishop e6. What does this do? Now see, just looking at the board, central space, right? Central power, right? Looking at white's position just as a very general view. Where's his power? Over on the queen side. This is not Mickey Mouse stupidity I'm trying to show you here. This is serious. You need to know what your opponent's going to do. In a rough general sort of way, queen side, central. See, it's not rocket science. This is serious. Why this bishop move, though? What does this do? Let's let Lipnitsky teach us something cool here. This move impedes the action of black's own rook on the e file. So why would he put it there? I just got done ranting and raving about, look, rook on open file, hitting the e5. And then the moron, Herr Botvinnik, puts the bishop in his way. What's he thinking? Is it necessary? Doesn't it reduce the pressure in the center? It turns out that it does not. Furthermore, this move, bishop to e6, has a deep idea behind it. Black is commencing a maneuver aimed at weakening the white's piece's influence in the center. And the way he does this is with this bishop. He's beginning to. And this is so fascinating how he does this, because he completely scatters his opponent's powers to the four corners of this board while he dominates the center. And it is that central domination that wins this game. That usually happens 99.9% of the time. So this is a great, interesting idea. Okay, I know. Quit talking, show us the game. Knight d2. Queen comes straight up to d7. The effect, a little closer to the center, but connect those rooks. See? Connect the rooks. A little closer to the queen side, connect those rooks. Connect those rooks. Use those rooks. They're very important. It's the second most powerful piece on the board. You don't want to just leave them, right? You can't win without those. Now look. F4. See, white is not a slouch here. Look, he's hitting e5 again. Nice. Now we're talking. This is greatly better than this h3 stupidity, right? But with every benefit of a pushed pawn, we have a negative side. Every time you push a pawn up the board, you leave behind weak squares. That's just the nature of chess. So, we have this d pawn, this cute little d pawn right there on d4, and he's doing a fine job hitting this e5 square right there. He has pushed this very fine looking f4 pawn right there, and he is also doing a fine job hitting the d5 square. However, there is now a new weakness on e4. Right? And I know the bishop's hitting it and the knight's hitting it. That's not what makes a weak or a strong square. The pawns have moved past the squares that can influence e4. So it is now weak, potentially. I just need to point that out to you. Because Botvinnik masterfully exploits this. Brilliantly. And he schools us in how to do it. Bishop f5. Why does Botvinnik want to exchange the light squared bishops? This is important. He doesn't care at this point about the dark square bishops. What is it about this board position that is causing him to see these are the bishops to exchange? You see, by knowing the pieces, by knowing the board position, by reading where the weaknesses and strengths are, he knows which pieces to play and which pieces to leave alone, which pieces to exchange and which pieces to stay on the board. This is how we improve our chess. So let's look behind the scenes and see the reasoning of why. Again, it comes down to the squares. So this is kind of advanced stuff. Obviously, the more weak points your opponent has in his camp, the easier it's going to be for you to break up his camp. That's logical, right? With a central pawn position of the type in this board right here, he says, the center squares next to the pawns are usually the weak ones. For white, this means e4 and c4, because these two center squares are next to the pawns. That's what I told you, right? You push a pawn and you leave a weak square. You push a pawn and you leave a weak square. So for black, this means that e5 and c5 is weak. Why? Because his pawn has started from here and he's to here. Next to the pawn is the weak square. That might help you remember how to look for weak squares. I know it did me, that's why I'm emphasizing this for you. This is cool stuff, man. So, with that information in mind, the natural defenders of these weak points are the bishops of the corresponding color of the squares. Duh. But see, hearing it said out, and then seeing it, you go, oh, yes, I get it. Oh, that's how you do that. So, Botvinnik, in this position, he's looking at this and he knows. He analyzes white's board. He's translating the board and he's saying, well, this square is weak, this square is weak, but the bishop influences those. Now on my side, the dark squares on either side of my pawn are weak, but my dark squared bishop supports those. So if I can exchange his strong bishop that is supporting his weak squares for my weak bishop, bad bishop, that is not supporting my squares, I have a stronger position. Nice. That's nice to know. That's cool. That is why he's going to swap bishops. He gets rid of his bad, weak bishop, and he gets rid of his opponent's strong, good bishop. This is critical to recognize. Queen comes back to c2. He's saying, what-oh, watch what Botvinnik does. Does he swap the bishop? He's teasing him, I think, or at least he's trying to pull him out. No, he puts his bishop on the outpost first. Perhaps white will swap here so that he can have an incredibly good passed pawn. But white doesn't fall for those kind of tricks. He goes ahead and pursues b5, more queenside space, that's his imbalance. Putting the question to the knight, yes, limit the knight, get that knight's not going to take this, or is he? Well, it's protected by this knight. It'd be a great central pawn. Knight's not going to go here, so by putting the question to the knight, is he going to force him back? You see? limit the influence of the knight. White's doing the right thing here. He's not going to fall for this sucker punch of let me take you so you can get a passed pawn. Right? So, Botvinnik takes the bishop. Whew, all that effort just to explain taking a bishop. But we want to know why. That way we learn. That is the only way to learn. So, and we're almost through the game. Relax. Okay. Now, knight does not retreat. Knight goes to a5. Excellent. The breach has opened up. Look at this. A weak square, right? Look at this. A weak square. Next to the pawn. Weak square. Next to the pawn. A weak square. The knight has access to both of those. The knight right here is on an outpost. Check it out, guys. Knight doesn't retreat passively. Knight moves forward to find the outpost. Knight a5. Oh yeah, we loving this. We looking good. Knight g3. He's looking at the e4 square. Knight c4. Mwah! Love that outpost. Love it. That's excellent stuff. Bishop drops to c1. He doesn't want to change off his bishop. Drops to c4. Once again, look at the board. What do you see? Yeah, you know you see it. Black's move. It's Botvinnik World Champion. You know you see it. You know what to do. You know what to do. King h7, quick, so I can put in check. No. Gosh dang, I've got to press forward so I can protect my king. No. You know what to do. Rook on open file. You've got a world champion chess player showing you what to do with rooks every game, man. I love this. Love it. Rook a to c8. Rook a2. Bishop f8. He comes back here for the defense. And now a4. Slowly building up the queen side. And of course, he had the weakness of a4 with the bishop and the knight hitting the a4. So he wants to get rid of that weakness. And now bishop. Where are you, bishop? Bishop b4. Pow. Look at the weaknesses on the queen side, however, that black finds. The square adjacent next to the pawn is the weak square. This pawn's already passed. This pawn's gone. There's the weakness. And what does he do? He puts his power on the weakness. And now, knight to d1 and knight to e4. Knight to e4. Oh man, if you've watched any of my earlier videos, even though I play suck chess in a lot of them, I have taught you the true Jeremy Silman principle that Botvinnik is showing also. See the outpost? See that support point? See that knight on that outpost? That's great chess. What's he do with the second knight? He takes his knight and he puts it on that outpost with this support point. That's great chess. That's what to do with knights. Rooks on open files? Oh, heck yes. Knights on outposts? Absolutely. Every one of black's pieces is better than white's. I mean, you hear me saying that pretty much every game too. That's because that's what you want to do. Black is slowly starting to dominate the center, and he's making every one of his pieces stronger than his opponents. How many times have we seen this? You'll see it thousands of times with those who win their games because it works. So if they're doing this, we need to. Right. Anyway, I've got to hustle. I've already blabbed and gabbed and BS'd my way through this enough. But there is still... Now the knight takes g3. Whoa, hey, come here, kid. Knight takes g3. What the? Huh? Because he's got the center dominated, he can afford to start doing stuff like this. Knight takes g3. Queen takes g3. Okay, well, it's a swap and chop, right? Now, bishop comes back here to d6 to put the question. Wow, that bishop is so vastly superior to this punk down here doing nothing. Get the point? Now, you better get the point. Okay. Queen f3. Of course, queen has to move quick. And now bishop to e7. What the heck is he doing? Trust me, this is the world champion Mikael Botvinnik. He knows exactly what he's doing. So queen comes back over to g3. Oh my. And bishop comes up to f6. Hitting the center again. Oh yeah, white tries to get some counterplay going. Takes h6. Bishop sacrifice. Forget about it. That's not important. That's off to the side. So he took a pawn. Who cares? Forget about it. You've got a much more powerful target in the center. That's right. You play like Mikael Botvinnik and you'll play winning chess. Take the center pawn. Forget that stupid. He ain't threatening your king. Calm down. That's bluff and bluster, right? You want proof? King now goes to h1. And now Botvinnik goes to f6. Very interesting. He is completely ignoring that bishop. Don't get sidetracked. It's not important. So the bishop goes back down to a totally worthless square, c1. Don't do your bishops this way. That's not winning chess. This is winning chess. Rook to e4. Wow. Queen to d3. Now, white's trying, central power. Not bad, not bad. Except knight to e5. Are you noticing the solid fortress of black in the center right now? He is virtually scattering red all over the board. And he's dominating the center. That is fabulous to see. That is seriously cool to see. And then pow. Rook to c4. a5, he's still trying to, you notice now he's way over there on the side. Bishop comes to c5. And now he does b6. See, he's gonna break through. Calm down. Relax, he's not gonna break through. All you have to do is calmly go to a6, and the pawns are locked. White has accomplished nothing. Knight to b2. So what? There's nothing else to do. Have you noticed this? There's nowhere else white can go. But look at what black can do. Ooh. Just a little bit tighter. Rook c3, bishop d2. Wow, there's a move for you. Doesn't do a lot, does he? Because he can't do a lot, can he? Why? Because Botvinnik is absolute master of the center. And all of his power radiates out from the center. And therefore he's trouncing white. Rook b3. Ooh. Pin to the queen. Queen undoes the pin, comes up to c2 and tries to threaten the rook. And now the lovely lady comes to b5. Have you ever seen anything so powerful? I mean, wow. Now rook comes over to c1. You notice he's not centralizing. He is reacting to everything black does. Bishop drops to f8. Now rook goes back over to d1. And rook, ever tightening, comes to e2. He is certainly on white's side of the board. This is called dominate. Queen has to go to c1. This is called dominate. This is incredible. And now for the beauty. Rook zips over here and takes h3. Pow! You go, oh, yikes. What'd you do that for? You just gave him a rook. You say, no, no, no. I didn't give him a rook. I just won a game. Here Black resigned. Because there's literally nothing he can do to stop. Or I mean White resigned because there's nothing he can do to stop Black from winning. His king is over here absolutely separated from his entire army. And Black has ways of coming in very speedily over to this king. Because he's operating from the center out. By Silman's method, and the way I'm trying to explain things out on my journey into chess mastery, we learn the basics, the background, the foreground, and it's broad and powerful. Once we know how and why, then we know the what. And that's pretty exciting. So thanks for watching my videos. Happy checkmating, happy chessercising, and sleep well tonight. I'm going to. I'm exhausted. And I'll see you in the next video.